Yemen is one that I've had Dave Smith on the podcast multiple times where he talks about it. Dave is very, very well read about Yemen, and it's a horrific scenario because no one cares, and it seems to me like not only no one cares. I mean, in the United States, this is not something that gets mainstream media attention on a daily basis, but the bombings are ongoing. Like we put up a chart once where they talked about the bombings that are happening in Ukraine versus the bombings that are currently happening in Yemen, and bombings that the United States is. And it's wild because it's like swept under the rug, and we don't think about it, and we don't even understand why we're doing it. Like I guarantee you, if you just polled a random 1,000 people and say, what are we doing in Yemen? No one would have any idea. You'd have to have someone who really gets into this sort of esoteric the details, like what is going on politically, what is going on economically. Someone like Dave Smith even might struggle with the full explanation of what our motivation, not the military's motivation is to do this. But it's happening. And because it's not getting any attention, it's allowed to happen without scrutiny. It's allowed to happen without real mainstream criticism. If you comb, the television news sources, cable, left and right, you're not going to find discussions of Yemen on a daily basis. But that is the one. If there's an area where we can't have that moral high ground, where we say, well, what about you? Like, why do we have those? Wouldn't it be better if the United States didn't have any of those that are unjustifiable, where you could say, oh, the United States did this in Vietnam. Yes, we did, but it was in the 1970s. Well, that would be ideal in terms of like an example of learning and growing.
Well, so that's the Oliver Stone perspective.
Yeah.
The thing is, there is, if you look at the details, a fundamental difference between what Vladimir Putin is doing and what the United States is doing. Now, everybody's a victim of somebody's propaganda. Now, I talked to Russians, which is a very interesting thing. Both Russians and Ukrainians say that they are not at all under the influence of propaganda. Russians believe there's no propaganda in Russia. And Ukrainians believe there's no propaganda in Ukraine. That's from Russians think the West is influenced by their propaganda, by the CNNs and the Foxes, and Ukraine is influenced by their propaganda, by the limited number of news channels they have that are state controlled. Okay?